Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to round 3 coverage of my games from the 2017 Western States Open. Round 3 was played Saturday morning. I had 2 games on Friday, which I won both of them. And the games are relatively short too, so that gave me a couple of advantages. One was that I had a decent night's sleep. Sometimes if I lose a game, or even if I win a game, but it's a long, complicated game that takes up a lot of time, I will end up losing sleep over it, just thinking about things that I might have played differently. So anyway, I woke up Friday morning feeling pretty good and in good position from a tournament standing with a perfect record so far. And my opponent was a young man with a rating of 1696. I had a rating of 1765. He was actually one of the kids. He's not yet an adult, but pretty good player, it looks like. Let's see. He started off with d4. I went knight f6. And he goes knight f3. So this is the first sign that he's not going to play one of those main line positions that the main line would continue with c4. So he's going for something different. Whenever I'm faced with this, I just play the move d5. It just doesn't hurt to put another pawn in the center and play classically until you see what your opponent is up to. And he reveals his plan in the very next move. He plays the London system with bishop to f4. So I have a standard way of playing against the London system. It's actually the main line, so it's pretty decent. It does not give black a whole lot of chances to fight for a win against good play, but it's one of those things. If white has white has the advantage of the first move, and if white decides to play a super solid system, it's very difficult for black to get a lot of winning chances. So my strategy against this is just to play solidly myself, not take unnecessary risks and get into trouble, and just wait and see how the game develops and look for opportunities and little missteps from my opponent. So that's my strategy, and so c5 is just the main move here, and it's putting pressure immediately on the center and asking white what he intends to do about it. And the most common move here is just to defend the center with e3. My opponent surprised me by playing the move d takes c5, and I've been playing this c5 move for a while now, and this is the first time, even in blitz, I think this is the first time I've seen this, but certainly it's the first time I've seen it played over the board. So I didn't have a ready answer. I mean, I knew I could always get the pawn back with the queen a5 check and get the pawn back, but it's not clear if that's really the best move here. So I went and looked this up afterwards, and the main line continues with knight c6, and it actually black is fine after this, although you have to be willing to play a pawn down for a while. The idea is that if white tries to hold on to the pawn like this with c3, you play e6 on the next move. e6 was the next move anyway, and you're just planning to round up that pawn with the bishop, and c3 prepared b4. So this is the way white can play to try and hold on to the pawn, and then black can play with a5. And this position is a lot like a queen's gambit accepted with colors reversed, where white is trying to hold on to the pawn, and in this case, it seems that black is equal here. So either black gets the pawn back or he gets some kind of compensation. So next time I'm faced with this position, particularly in blitz, I think I'll try out that knight c6 line. But at this game I didn't really know about that, what the right move was here, and I just went with the queen a5 check idea. I don't like going a pawn down unless I have a clear plan. So he goes c3 to block the check. I grab the pawn, and he goes e3. And so maybe here white has some slight opening edge instead of it being completely dead even, but I don't think black has anything to fear either. I just continue with some normal developing moves. I guess the one decision I have to make is whether I want to play e6 now or whether I want to develop my bishop first. Probably both are playable, but in the game I just decided to go with e6. Sometimes your king gets into trouble being out here for too long. There are some potential checks with his queen over here, maybe creating some awkwardness in my position, and my queen might be a bit exposed. So all in all, I wanted to get castled quickly, so I just go with this e6 move. So you play knight bd2, and I go bishop d6. This is also part of the main line here. Is the idea is just to oppose bishops and trade them off. And he takes, and I take. So let's pause here. I think, as I was saying, white still has some slight edge, but my opponent was playing these moves kind of quickly, and the impression I got was that he wasn't that interested in the opening. He was just kind of going through the moves and just waiting to see what happens as well. I think it's I've seen this in more than one young player, and I wonder why, because there are more interesting ways to play than the London system. But I think what it is that they get told at some point that the London system is an easy system to learn, and then they don't have to spend all their time trying to learn a lot of opening theory. So they just go through the opening quickly and then try to get into the game where they can use their tactical ability. So it's not like they're avoiding tactics or avoiding complications. It's just they're avoiding the opening, basically. They're just trying to play quickly and get through the opening and not get into any trouble, and then win at some later point with their greater energy or tactical vision. So anyway, the first sign that my opponent intends to play a bit tactically is this next move. He plays knight to c4. It's kind of a cute move, taking advantage of the pin, but not the best move here. It actually does not accomplish a whole lot. The line given by the chess engine goes like this. Another way of kind of exploiting the loose position of my queen here. e4. And then I can take that, and then now queen e4 check, trying to discoordinate my pieces over here before I have a chance to castle. Bishop d7, and knight takes e4. And, well, I don't know what to say about this position. I guess I can trade queens, but then he will take my queen with check. That might be a little bit annoying, and grab this pawn over here. So probably I should just retreat my queen, and he would retreat his queen. Anyway, the chess engine likes white slightly in this position. I'm not really sure why white is preferred. Maybe because he's going to castle queenside and get some quick pressure on the d file. Maybe that's the plan here for white. But it seems to me after I move my queen, he's going to have to move his queen, and I will have time to castle as well. So I don't think I should be in any huge trouble either. But that's, anyway, best play for white, and according to the chess engine, keeping some kind of advantage. After knight c4, actually, the chess engine starts to prefer black's position. Oh, I should say another alternative here is just playing queen c2. Once again, preparing to castle, and also with the rook on the d file, that would also introduce some tactical possibilities for play against my queen. So a couple of good alternatives for white. Instead, he played knight c4, kicking my queen, and I dropped my queen back to c7. e7 might have been a better move. That's actually the preference of the chess engine, but it's not bad. Let's see, he goes knight ce5, and I castle. And all in all, yeah, the chess engine starts to like black around here. Let's see, he goes queen c2, I go knight c6, and once again he plays kind of a simple move. He just trades, takes. So he really hasn't, and he's still playing very quickly. Let's see, I go bishop e2 here. Oh, it's his turn. He goes bishop e2 here, and I go e5. So he's prepared to castle in either direction. This is one of those positions where I'm always wondering whether I should play with e5 or with c5, and both of them have their points. e5 immediately opens up this diagonal for the bishop. c5 indicates perhaps the bishop is going to come over here to b7. Maybe I'll centralize my rooks and push forward with the d-pawn. So both plans are somewhat appealing, and black gets control of the center. So looking at it with the chess engine, actually e5 and c5 are two of the top choices. So it didn't answer my question. So I guess I will have to look at this. But in the future, it seems like e5 and c5 in these kind of positions, either one is playable. So anyway, I went with e5 here. He castled kingside, And then I went on with e4. Now the castled kingside, I was having ideas of maybe generating a kingside attack. But that's not the most precise move here. Actually, the chess engine prefers c5 now. Just grab that big center and ask white how he's going to develop his pieces. And then once again, I can move the bishop in either direction, I guess, and then centralize my rooks and look to break through in the center. So c5 would be a good way to play. e4 is more direct, and well, it's not a bad move, but not the most accurate according to the chess engine. Let's see, he dropped his knight back to d2, and I went bishop to g4. This was my idea, was I was hoping, you know, if he continues his pattern of just taking quickly, I was hoping to get a knight here and maybe force some pawn weaknesses in combination with the queen. The knight would be, queen and knight would be attacking h2 there, so he'd have to do something about that. But no, he played a better move here. He went knight to b3. So he's not trading and encouraging my pieces forward, but he's maneuvering his knight around. He's defending his bishop with the queen, and his knight is looking at some good squares. So starting to play a little more sharply, I think, at this point. I decided to go ahead and trade the bishop. This is, after all, his good bishop. He's got pawns on dark squares where I have pawns on light squares in the center. So that bishop trade is probably okay for me. And then I didn't think, well, first of all, knight g4 is no longer a playable move because the queen is guarding that square. You know, I considered briefly something like h5, knight g4, but that did not seem to lead to a whole lot. And I spotted some other ideas for this knight. There's some good squares here where the knight could look at from this position on e5. So I started maneuvering my knight to get to the e5 square. And let's see, he played h3. I'm not sure about the point of this move. Maybe just giving his king some lift. Yeah, it's just, I mean, my knight has moved away, so I'm no longer threatening to come to g4. But anyway, that's what he played. And then here, I didn't want to play knight e5 immediately, although the chess engine says I should have. Let's see, I was worried he would play knight to c5, and that would stop my plan of dropping my knight in here. But, well, what the chess engine points out is that in this position I can kind of switch tack a little bit. I bring my queen over here to e7, hitting his knight, plays b4, and then I play f5. And, well, it gives king h1 as the move here. I'm not sure why. And then rook a to e8. But you can see the idea here is to switch back to a kingside attack. Don't worry about getting that knight to the ultimate square. Leave it here on e5 where it has a variety of squares it can go to. And centralize these rooks and then start pushing the pawns forward on the king side. Looks like this would be a pretty interesting way to play, and his knight over here is a little bit away from the action. So this would be better than what happened in the game. So yeah, I just wasn't really looking ahead that far. I was thinking about knight e5, knight c4, and then what do I do? But, well, with the knight out of the way, the queen has access to the king side. The knight can just sit there, and his knight isn't doing a whole lot on that c4 square anyway. And then I can start pushing forward pawns on the king side. So something I should have thought about. But, well, anyway, I was still thinking about this knight e5 to d3 maneuver. And so I played the move a5 with the intention of chasing this knight away. If this knight moves, then I can go to e5 to d3 without too much worry. So after a5, he played the move c4. So I just continue with a4, kicking the knight. The knight hopped into the d4 square. He can't come to c5 right now because I've got that covered, but this is a perfectly good square. So I've actually chased his knight to a better place. And so with this combination of moves, I have actually given up that advantage, and now we're back to about even. So for a while, until I started this a5 maneuver, the chess engine was liking black quite a bit. Now it thinks the position is about even. But anyway, during the game, I was still feeling pretty good about my position. I went here with knight e5. He trades. He takes on d5. And then plays rook a to c1. And I was expecting this, and I've been wondering about where to place my queen. There's a number of plausible moves. Maybe queen d7 is the best choice overall for keeping some winning chances, keeping some life in the position, and playing on. But basically, all the queen moves lead to a position that's about even. I played queen b6 in the game. I wanted to get a tempo on these pawns, and well, this is maybe an option to swing over to the king side along the 6th rank there. But it does allow the possibility in some cases for his knight to come to the c6 square. And so I was a little bit aware of that. I mean, I was aware that it might end up with his rook coming to that square, but I thought I could deal with that if it happened, and I would gain some tempo, and I would get my knight to this good square. So anyway, I went here with queen b6, and as I said, the chess engine still rates all of this as about even. So he went b3. I took, he took, and now this pawn is supported by his knight. But here I get my knight to this d3 square that I'd been aiming at all of this time. But, well, he gets his rook to c6. So, he pushes my queen back. Now, I didn't think this was going to be too much of a problem because the rook has not many squares to go to. So basically I can bring my rooks over and chase it away. It's not going to have any, it's not going to be able to stay there for the long run. But he plays some quick moves here. So he plays the move queen h5. Let's back up. Actually, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. In this position here, right here, when I played queen b6, I was thinking about some things. Like I was aware of this sequence that ends up with his rook on c6, but I wasn't aware of this queen h5 move. And it wasn't until after I moved my queen here. If you look at the position before this, right here, the queen's defending the knight, so queen to h5 is not coming with any kind of tempo. But when I move my queen to b6, then he can play queen h5 with tempo, hitting my knight. And I wasn't really aware of that until after I made the move. So that was kind of the first sign that my concentration was slipping a little bit in this game. And well, one thing I wanted to say from a practical point of view, if you notice a little slip like that, that sign that your concentration is slipping, that's a opportunity for you to remind yourself to go back to the basics and make sure you're checking for all of the moves that your opponent might make before you play your moves. Make sure you're doing those blunder checks and things. So you should look for those little slips like that and and try and set a flag, and play a little more conscientiously after that. Anyway, queen b6. Let's go. Let's continue with the game. b3. I already showed this part before. I took. He took. I got my knight to d3, and he played rook to c6. Queen b7, and now he plays the queen h5 move. And so he didn't play it in the earlier case, but it still is coming with tempo. It's hitting this pawn over here, and I have to figure out a way to defend that pawn. And eventually I played rook f to d8. There's a couple other ways to defend. Knight to b4 is one of the top choices, and hitting the rook as well as defending the pawn. But it kind of takes my knight away from its attacking post here, so I wasn't too happy about that idea. Another idea was queen here. I think that's one of the top engine choices. But eventually I decided to defend this way with rook f to d8. And then he played the move queen to g5. And now I have to start thinking pretty hard here. Let's see. And this is going to be a good opportunity for some tactical quizzes here. So I think I will do this in 2 stages. The first stage is, it's my turn to move. It's black's turn to move here. And there's a pretty big threat. This knight is threatening to come into the f5 square and just checkmate me here. And this annoying rook is restricting a lot of things that I could do. So the thing is, I wasn't too worried about this rook. I thought I could always chase it away. But in fact, I don't necessarily have time to chase it away. So anyway, with those clues, you might want to look at this position and see if you can find the best defense for black here. What is the best move for black? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. The best defense here, according to the chess engine, is queen to b8. Now, if you found this move, I have to give you real props because it is not even a move I considered during the game, and I didn't find it, having not considered it at all. But well, the idea is pretty clever. It's knight to f5, queen to e5. Defend with the queen from the e5 square. So the whole point of this maneuver is to get the queen onto this diagonal so I can get out to the e5 square. And that holds, and the chess engine rates that as completely even. So that is not one of the moves I considered. There are various moves that I considered and rejected. So let's see. The first idea I had was to play something like queen to d7 and pawn to g6. So that, well, say his knight comes in here. Say I play the queen move first. His knight comes in here and I play the pawn up. Then it kind of chases him away, and the queen on the light squares together with these pawns on the light squares sort of controls enough squares over here that I don't get mated. But there is a problem with that idea, so you might want to think about that. This is your second tactical quiz here. Suppose black plays queen d7 and white goes knight f5 and black goes g6. How do you think it would continue from there? And do you think that's a valid defense for black? Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away now. So queen d7, knight f5, g6. He plays the move knight to e7 check. And this is kind of awkward. The king has to move over here, and then the queen comes into f6. And this is getting really, really difficult to defend here. The queen is now coming into h8, and things are falling apart. Another line, I actually didn't see that during the game. I rejected this line for a different reason. Let's see. If he plays knight f5, I go here. He could have come in with knight to h6 check. And if I go here with king to g7, he's got rook to f6. And this piling up of the queen or the knight and the rook on this f pawn is pretty tough to take. Let's see. Actually, I made a miscalculation during the game. I was thinking during the game that he would play here, force my king this way, and then his queen would come here. But actually, let's back up. That was a miscalculation. If the queen comes there with check, I can actually just grab the knight. But anyway, it seems like this position with, let's see, with knight f5, g6, knight e7 check, it seems like that's the clearest refutation of this plan with queen d7 and pawn to g6. So in either order, there's something goes wrong there. So let's go back to the game position. Of course, remember, you have lots of time to think about this. My opponent's been playing quickly. I've been taking more time, but there's still plenty of time on the clock. We're only on move 27 here. Let's see. So another move I considered was king to h8. Just getting away from the pin, so that this pawn is no longer pinned. There were some lines where his rook could come over and take advantage of that pin on the g file. But there is a problem with king to h8. So this is a nice little tactical workout too. See if you can figure out what white would play after king h8. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. King h8 Knight to f5 comes with a mate threat. And so I don't have time to grab the rook, for example. And my idea was to play f6, defend against the mate threat this way. But in fact, the very nice tactical point here is that he can sack the rook because this is also a mate. If I take queen check and I'm getting mated on the next move, if I block with the queen, then he takes with the queen and that's mate, and if I move the king, then knight to h6 is mate. So very pretty mating pattern, something you should have in your memory banks. That's a nice pattern to know. And so after rook takes, I actually can't take the rook, but then he's just up material, and the attack is continuing, so that's also winning. So the move I played after a process of elimination, I played the move king f8. And this is not quite enough to hold the position if white plays accurately from here. But well, my opponent, who, like I said, had been playing quickly up until this point, well, he started slowing down, I guess, as things got tactical there. He spent a half an hour thinking at this position and could not find anything, and he offered a draw. And I turned down the draw offer because I thought if his queen had to retreat, if there was no attack here, then once again I'm going to chase his rook away. And I liked my chances with this knight so far advanced into his camp. He has this weak outside passed pawn. There's enough force. I mean, in the endgame, the outside passed pawn is like a trump card, but at the moment it's a weakness that he has to defend. So yeah, I liked my chances in this position. I mean, this pawn is a weakness too, but I've got it covered, so it's not so easy to attack. So I liked my chances in this position, so I wasn't going to take a draw unless, well, I just wasn't going to take a draw in this position unless I thought I was getting mated, and I didn't see how he could mate me. So he offered the draw before making his move, which is actually a little bit incorrect. The right way to do it is to make your move first, then offer the draw, and then hit the clock, so that your opponent can think about the draw offer on his own time. Anyway, he offered the draw. I declined it. And he thought for another 15 minutes and then finally made his move. And the move he made was queen to f5. And at this point, I agreed to a draw because I have no move. He's got this threat here, the knight coming in with check, forking these pieces, and at the same time his queen is hitting the h7 square. So I have no move other than moving my king back to g8, which would be a repetition. So, and in the other position I didn't see any move other than king f8. So I accepted the draw, and that's how the game ended. But let's go back to that position where after I played king f8 and he thought for half an hour, the move here that actually will keep an advantage to white. Yeah, maybe you can think about this position for a while. Now that you know there is a move here, what would you play as white? Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. It's not at all an obvious move. The move the chess engine plays here to give an advantage for white is f3. So I guess the point is black is sort of stymied over here, can't make progress with direct piece maneuvers against my king with the existing pieces, but he can bring more force into it. So I guess that's the logic of this f3 move, trying to open up the f-file. So anyway, the chess engine gives queen to e7 as the best defense here, forcing a trade before the f-file opens up. Queen takes, king takes, rook to c7 check, rook d7 blocking, takes, takes, and f takes e4. And at the end of that, he's a pawn up, and this pawn is hanging, and this pawn is hanging. So white is going to stay a pawn up. It actually gives f6 is the best move for black, and then white can take another pawn here. 1, 2, 3. That would actually be 2 pawns up, but maybe I round up these pawns. Anyway, that would be an end game where white has all the winning chances. So that would be best play from this position. So that was white's chance. And he wasn't moving too quickly at this point. He just did not spot that one idea. So anyway, I went after that. Yeah, he played queen to f5, and I agreed to the draw here. So that's how the game ended. Anyway, pretty interesting game. And so after 3 rounds, I'm at 2.5 points. So I'm no longer tied with the leaders. There's actually at least one player, maybe more, that had still a perfect score at this point. But I'm in the group that's near the top. So still a good tournament. And this game did finish pretty quickly, so I had some time to go out and drive around and relax before the evening round started at 6. I think the evening round starts at 6. So stay tuned, and I'll be back with coverage from my round 4 game. See you then.